Here's my homework. It was to read 2 chapters of Study Driven by Katie Wood Ray, and then make a commentary or kind of have my thoughts on the 2 chapters that I read. So I read chapters 1 and 2, and here are my thoughts on chapter 1. The idea was, the main idea that I pulled out was they read a sample to better understand the genre of writing that they'll be writing about soon. But all the questions and comments they have, the teacher provides a point that they want to touch on. So they read something and then students make comments, but then the teacher kind of pulls out the point that is about that genre of writing or is about this grammar that they're studying. The example was students read a bunch of commentaries, 5th graders, and then students identify what made a commentary compared to other writings. And then they would write a commentary themselves. Chapter 2, I have 4 points that I really want to touch on, and I liked the examples from chapter 1, but chapter 2, I liked the reflection. So, one point that was made is there will always be content to teach, but the student is what aids the discovery, is what develops meaning to the content, and is what's the point of learning. There will always just be something there, but it's helping to learn about it. The next point was reading to write. And actually, I love this because I did this in 6th grade. I was writing a story, and I didn't understand why it was so much easier to read a novel than it was my own writing. And then I saw that when I had someone speaking, I was just clumping it all together. And I was like, well, how do they do it in a novel? So I pulled a novel from the shelf, and I looked at how dialogue was punctuated. And then I was like, oh, so I need to do this when I'm writing. And that was my first time that I was reading to write, which was interesting. And I've actually done that with my students several times. The next point, second to last point, is this one touches my heart. Over time, good teachers become content experts through the discovery process, which I've noticed as I've become a teacher, that I have to learn more and more as my students learn. And that's interesting, always learning. And the last point is, which I think that I need to do more of, is talk to my students about their learning. So, what are your thoughts about X? And I feel like I don't do that enough, and I do have small groups. So asking more questions and then pulling their answers to try and get to talk about what I need to talk about, which is the content, but they're essentially pulling it out already. I'm just kind of putting a name to it. So these are my, 3.5 minutes on Study Driven, which was my homework for the night. See you tomorrow.